The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together to share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive. Good morning, Pierre.
Good morning, Maureen. We were just having a whole just crap ton of fun here this morning. And Maureen wants to talk about Deb Dana, and it's another resource and a really cool one because it's part of this exploding world of new knowledge and new applications of the knowledge in the therapeutic realm. And that's what Maureen's involved in. So take it away, Maureen and Deb Dana.
Okay, yeah, definitely a mind-body resource. and Pierre and I are laughing because we were trying to have some sort of a coherent conversation about, how the mind and body are related and polyvagal theory, and it's just very complicated. And so we're just going to talk about Deb Dana's resource in a nutshell, and then people can, if you so desire, go off and dig down deep into things. But basically, she's a psychotherapist.
That's right. Yeah.
And her book is called The Polyvagal Theory in Therapy. So it's her application of this thing called the polyvagal theory that belongs to Dr. Stephen Porges. So basically, Deb Dana's book teaches people, how to realize and recognize their physiological states. And according to this polyvagal theory, you have like this hierarchy of states, like think of a ladder. And she uses this metaphor.
You can be relaxed or you can be stressed.
Yes, exactly. You can be wanting to be connected and engaged with people, and playing and cooperating, or you can be wanting to isolate and withdraw and be like, I hate the world and people, and right, either, high regulation or low and all of that stuff. So if you think of a ladder, there's these she breaks it down into 3 distinct states, and she explains how this polyvagal theory is connected to those states. It's a very interesting way to do psychotherapy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my crude analogy is, you can be on a beach or you can be being chased by a cheetah, one of those things. But a couple of things that I think were interesting about this is that the prior modality or thinking paradigm for human operation was the brain sending messages to the body. But you said it's really a two-way street, and this brought that out, and you're up and down regulating with these literal pathways or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the polyvagal theory explains a lot of what you're talking about, like these nerves that carry messages, and which parts of the brain, and the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, is involved, and how it's connected to your heart and your guts, and in your face, the muscles in your face, and your larynx for your tone of voice, in your eyes and your ears.
Right.
So all of that inner, I guess, networking that's in our nervous system, central nervous system, is well, not responsible for your states, but a part of your physiology. So knowing those things are helpful.
Yeah, we're bringing forward these things because they haven't been around for that long. Right. And the theory comes out of research that Stephen Porges did around infants, and so it's grounded in something, and then it kind of blossoms up, and then I think you said Deb Dana kind of like, oh, this has effect for therapy, and so so here's a resource.
Super important application. I think it's sort of like, to me, when I read this stuff and learned this stuff, it's like you can't unlearn it. It's like, oh my God, wow, I get that. I get why people are either relaxed or fearful with me, and we talk about how, you can talk with people and help them understand, why they're in the state they're in. First of all, to understand, what state am I in? What state am I in? And what does it feel like for me? And, talking and so forth. And then what are my triggers that got me into that state? Even if she calls them triggers, and that kind of has a negative connotation, as we all know, but also glimmers, she calls the things that get us into a, positive, social engaged state.
That's cute. I like that.
State, right? Like, what are your glimmers and what are your triggers, and how you move through these various states that are on that ladder of your autonomic nervous system.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing Deb Dana forward, and pretty cool stuff. And I like the fact that we didn't go down the rabbit hole explaining it, but kind of, I think the podcast is, who's this person? What's this all about? And sometimes we go back to Socrates, but a lot of times the reason we're doing this is because there's just this huge explosion, and it's hard to pick up all these things. So this is a central place to kind of sort through it. I also, just plugging our little podcast here, Learning Conversation, I'm pretty explicit about it. It's like, we don't know all this stuff, and we just say resource. So it's like a pointer, and you can go there and check it out or not. But by the time we get done with these things, and we're over a year into it, there's going to be a bunch of stuff out there. I can't keep it track. That's how this started. I can't keep all this stuff straight, so we're kind of organizing it.
Yeah, and on that note, it's like, okay, well, why are we talking about like something a psychotherapist does, with like the nervous system? Why is that a mind-body resource that just everyday people might be interested in? It's because a lot of people won't go to therapy, but like, why shouldn't you have this knowledge that can help you understand yourself better, take care of yourself better, understand other people better, just in a general sense? And what I like about her application of this with, teaching people, it's, you can better understand, when somebody else might be in a defensive fear state. And you can if you recognize that in yourself, you can recognize that in other people, and maybe show a little compassion. People feel less shame when they know, like, oh, that's what's happening with me. And like, why shouldn't we all generically know that, instead of just like, oh, well, you can find this out if you go to therapy. You don't need to, like, her book is really accessible, and it's very conversational, and she does a great job, way better than I tried to do in our first go around of this podcast, of explaining very technical stuff in just everyday terms that are accessible.
So that's super valuable information. So Deb Dana, does this stuff, but she does it in a very accessible way. And then I think you said something, and we can wind up, that was super important. It was like, once you learn this, you can't unlearn it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's a very powerful statement, and a reason to check it out.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me, on the Sounds True website, you can find another really great resource, people, called Befriending Your Nervous System. And it's Deb Dana recorded. It's sort of like little mini chapters. It's
cool.
called Befriending Your Nervous System, and it's direct application. And I've actually listened to it with clients and used it, different parts of it with clients. Which is a really like kind of hands-on application of what's in her other work.
So
that's
again,
another great resource with her.
So again, it's the resources. Somebody writes about it, but it's also available in Sounds True. You can listen to it in snippets, very accessible stuff. All right. Well, that's Deb Dana in a nutshell.
All right. I'm Maureen, Landscapes for Learning. Live to learn, learn to live.
Thank you. I'm living And I'm learning through these podcasts. I'm so glad we called it Learning Conversation. So I'm Pierre from Yoga Heals Everywhere, and peace through grace, my friends. Peace through grace.